ScouterStan. Let's talk a little bit about this funding issue. As a scout leader, we're constantly needing funds to kind of support what we do. Going off to summer camp, going to day camp. There's a lot of different things going on throughout the year, all the different activities, and it can be overwhelming and stressful. It doesn't have to be that way. We can turn that around. And there are lots of little avenues that we kind of have to explore, and one of those can really change everything. Now, the reality of unit cost is universal. Every unit, every chartered unit, has the responsibility to maintain a certain level of revenue coming in so that they can pay for their renewals and recharter and stuff like that. It is very important. There's a lot of different expenses, and so many units just take all of that expense and just send it over to the parents. It doesn't have to be that way. At least half can be done as fundraisers for the unit. That will meet the demand that is constantly out there. Regardless if it's a pack, troop, a crew, a ship, does not matter. They all need that funding. It's important to develop a plan, and you want to make sure that the plan of activities are actually decided, and the actual recommendation for those things should be done by the youth, especially in a troop or crew or a ship. With a pack, it's all done with families, and the dens work on a actual schedule. So there's all those expenses are actually spelled out for them. But in a troop, a crew, or a ship, it varies. And that's the important thing. You have to plan for those things. If you know you're going to summer camp, you got to prepare for it. If you know that you're going to be doing an activity, especially high adventure as a crew, you're going to need fundraising. And if you're with a ship, there's a lot of maintenance on a ship. So that is something Sea Scouts have to deal with. You know these things exist, and you can plan for them. And they continuously go on, okay? This is a continuous thing. Even though the scouts may come in and age out, the unit keeps going. So these are ongoing things. Now, if you have a unit that's expanding, okay, say a troop that's got 30 new Cub Scouts coming in, that's an expense. And you have to be able to afford that as a unit, be able to have enough tents, enough lanterns for an additional patrol. This is something that a unit, like a troop, has to deal with. There's an impact on the unit, and that has a lot to do with the fundraising. The annual budget. Now, this is something that every single unit will develop naturally, depending on the planning thing from earlier, when all the youth got together and said, hey, we want to do this big camp out, we want to do this big canoe trip, we want to go to that summer camp. When they make that decision, the next thing is budgeting. How are they going to pay for that? Are they going to rely on the parents? It doesn't seem right that you should. What you need is to rely on the scouts that made those decisions. That is something that they need to think about. That comes later, okay? So in the approval process, once that plan for the year has been made, then it's handed over to the committee. And the units committee actually goes through and says, gee, we can't, these are very expensive things. We need to do some fundraising to at least cut the cost by half or more. That is something that needs to be budgeted, and it has to be realistic. Yes, a unit that has 40 scouts, maybe, if you had tons of money in there, you could do just about anything. The problem is you have to know what you are goal setting for. Because if there's no goal and it's just money, 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 then that takes away from the actual reward. If they have to do car washes and fundraising, we'll get into some of the ideas there. But if they have to do all that work, it should be a reward for that activity. Something to seriously think about as an adult leader. Now, it's important that the adult leadership mentors and coaches the youth on their plan, especially when it comes to the money, the funding. This is something that's so critically important for the youth to understand. Doing a great trip, like a ski trip or doing something of that nature, a canoe trip, whatever it is, it may require certain funding for the different places along the way, different fees for rental equipment. There's a lot of stuff there. And the youth should not be totally shielded from that, especially the senior patrol leader and the patrol leaders, the Patrol Leaders Council, the PLC, in a troop. They should be directly told, this is what it's going to cost to do that activity, and this is what you're going to have to do to raise the money to subsidize or pay for that entire trip. Now, from a committee standpoint, there are things happening in the background that are very important. Scout Reach is one of those programs that helps parents that cannot afford to just pay out tons of money towards an activity. Scout Reach is there to help with registration and get them started, maybe a uniform, a book, that kind of stuff. That is a cost that has been taken on by the unit. And that's true for packs. That's true for troops and crews and so on. It is so important that you understand there's things happening in the background. There's also scholarships. A lot of times there are things out there like Wood Badge that's training for the adults. And it would be nice as a unit to encourage the adult, or what I call the scout-facing leaders, to go to Wood Badge. And it's true for the behind the scenes too. All scout leaders should have that opportunity. But sometimes they can't afford it. If they have 3 kids in the troop and they're involved, it can get very expensive. So it would be nice to have a tuition or some way of reimbursing some of the fees that are needed to go to Wood Badge. That's also true for National Youth Leadership Training, NYLT. For the youth, there could be a scholarship for one of the patrol leaders, senior patrol leaders, assistant senior patrol leaders. Those scouts could actually go and spend a week doing the Wood Badge of the Youth, which is this NYLT. These are things that could go on and plan in the background. Now, there are traditional fundraisers that are supported through your council, and that's true for wherever you are throughout the United States. They often the traditional fundraisers are things like popcorn. Popcorn is a big thing in scouting. Just like in Girl Scouts have cookies, we have popcorn. So that's a fundraiser. And believe me, when you look at it, it really is a good deal because your council, your area is actually funding up front all of that materials. Supporting that can be a big deal. And that can go on for several months. Now, in my area, our council actually does a thing called camp cards, which are cards that help fund. They're like $5. And it's got all these discounts on it that are almost twice, if not 4 times the amount that people are asked to donate to get the camp card. It is an amazing way, a discount card. There's discount coupon clubs and things like that your district or council could be supporting. So check within your area. This is a great fundraiser. It doesn't cost all that much as far as the actual card. And the discounts help your local businesses in your area. So it's a win-win-win, okay? So that is a very good fundraiser. Now, another big traditional way of actually giving back to your community and help get some fundraising going for your unit are these dinners or breakfasts that they actually can put together, like a pancake breakfast or a spaghetti dinner, okay? Pancakes are extremely cheap to make, okay? You can burn a pancake, though, so you got to keep your eye on it, leaders. That's the thing. But spaghetti, very inexpensive and a very big crowd pleaser, and it helps out not only the unit, They feel like they've actually all been involved, and they all do these things. So that little dinner at the local civic center, or at the church or the synagogue, these are fantastic ways to give back to your unit and the community. So that's a traditional thing that a lot of units do. Ongoing fundraising opportunities are always available. Everything from a tip jar at the local haircut place with a really nice troop whatever or pack whatever on the actual donation jar, and then maintaining that. That's a good revenue source to bring in for the unit, and that's a huge thing. That's kind of an ongoing. A lot of places will allow that. A little stand or a little bucket there for that thing to help out Cub Scouts or helping out a troop or crew. These are wonderful ways to have a constant income coming in. It may be very, very small. That's the thing. Then, of course, you have things like car washes. That's a very wonderful thing. But as far as ongoing kinds of ideas, these can be continuous. These are all year long. And every year. So they just continue, okay? That is an important thing. Now, there can be event-based ways of raising money. For instance, the charter that you're with has a circus or something that comes in and uses a section of land. And you, as a unit, might get donations from the organizer of that entire thing, where they can actually help, where your scouts can actually help out with like trash removal or helping out with crowd control, maybe the parking lot, things like that. So these are activities that are very event based, and it could be a craft fair, it could be, you name it. There's a lot of different events that scouts can be involved in. Of course, it's all done in a safe situation. That's a very important thing, and it should be also appropriate. You don't want your Cub Scouts doing crowd control. Okay, it has to be age appropriate, so you have to keep those things in mind. But it's an opportunity. You may be a booth just to have that recruiting, that year-round recruiting booth in there, and maybe even a donation or a tip jar. That could be something. That's a small way of getting a revenue back into your scouts. Now, there are modern approaches that might be something like a crowdfunding kind of thing. That's something you need to look into as far as viability. And typically, this is done on a level. There's a level of what you actually want to do. For instance, if it's a fundraiser to go to summer camp, to help scouts go to summer camp, that's where the level is, okay? And it's usually a goal that you set. And that's electronic. So that's something to think about. Unit annual support is a great way to raise money specifically for your unit and your scouts. This could be something as simple as a patch, a dangle, or something that adults can actually add to their uniform as a supporter. A lot of times, if you look back, and a lot of councils do Friends of Scouting. Well, there should be Friends of your unit too. So you need both. That's the thing about that fundraising, and that's a continuous thing year round. Every year, you could come out with an appreciation gift. Whether it be a canteen or something. It could be a patch, it could be a shirt, it could be, there's a lot of different things that you can get as a thank you. And that way you can raise a significant amount of money for your unit. Partnering with your chartered organization and your community is super important for every unit. Pack, troop, crew, or ship. They all need this. This is true for all of them. You need that good relationship. Sometimes, and this is rare, but there are units out there, packs, troops, all that stuff. It's completely funded through the charter. That's a wonderful thing, and you need to make sure that you're very grateful for all of their support. But they're rare, okay? A lot of times the unit is on its own as far as funding for all of the absolute essentials, and just passing it on to the parents is hard. It's so much easier if you can do some of these fundraising ideas to at least subsidize or maybe even pay for some of the activities and registrations and all the other fees that are involved. That's something that a unit can do. A lot of times scouters get kind of nuts about that, because when they're recruiting, they have parents that come in, they think it's all free. No, scouts should earn their way. That is, and you got to give them the opportunity. That is a big paradigm shift for some adults. They think it's all free, but it's not. Scouting, it can be expensive. As scouters, we know. And doing activities, doing those fun things, requires fundraising all year round. And with that, it's important to also remember that your chartered organization is absolutely critical to the success of your unit. There should be a good relation where the scouts do service activities, with no charge, because they're, that's one of those things. You need to have that good relationship with your charter. You need to make sure that you do things for them. And that's a critical thing about a charter. You want them to be happy. You don't want the charter to say goodbye to a unit, because then you're scrambling to find somebody that'll take you. And it might be as simple as you broke a flag in one of the classrooms. It could be that trivial, okay? The troop that actually did that, the charter was very upset. So what did they do? The troop actually went out and bought new flags for every single room. Okay, and put them in, installed them for that charter, and they were very happy. So it was, it's the thing about scouting. When I was a kid, break a window in the church, oh my. Well, believe me, both panes of glass, even the one that wasn't broken, got replaced, okay, and fixed, okay. That was just the right thing to do. And the charter didn't even say anything, okay? But it's kids. Things happen. So you have to have that good relationship. And sometimes it may be an expense on the unit. It's not on the charter. So, and that's a thing you need to work out. I recommend that you do some of these things that you normally would do as a fundraiser. Do them as a giving back to your charter, because literally they are the owners of your unit. So you want to make sure there's a great relationship there. Scout participation is a must, and there are fundraising opportunities for their individual, what they call a scout account. As a general system, you do want to avoid some of that issues. It's not like you're going to opening a savings account for every single scout. They should be doing that on their own. But that savings account done by the troop, and the troop's controlled by the charter, that runs into a lot of issues. Okay, so you want to do things as a group. You want everybody to participate. Now, it's totally fine to have a point system. The scout that's working really hard has a higher point level, and therefore that points go towards paying towards summer camp. That's a great system, okay? That's nothing to do with money. Whenever you're dealing from an adult level, you're dealing with the money. You can get taxes involved and a lot of other things that could be a problem. So it's best to avoid all that and just do it put it in one account, okay? And that way, that account can be divvied up to the different scouts that did their participation. But it's points. It's all different points that they would actually earn. And instead of dollars, you could say points. So, that's the thing. You just change the terminology there so that it's one big pot of money for the actual event, but you're not running into legal issues. In fact, definitely check with your pack, your crew, your troop. Check with them and see if anyone is legal, like a CPA or somebody that knows accounting, or maybe even the legal part of that. That would be an excellent person to put on your troop or your unit committee as treasurer. Okay, so or being in the treasurer's team. So definitely think about that. Hey, before we go any further, I want to make sure that you know that you are invited to the campfire chat meeting we have each month on the first Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We get together around the campfire and talk about all kinds of scouting issues, and you have a reserved seat in the chat where you can ask questions of anyone on the live show. So you don't want to miss it. Let me take a moment to just thank all of the patrons on Patreon. They've been financially supporting this podcast for quite some time. Also, I want to thank all of the members of the YouTube channel that have also been supporting financially what we do here. If you have a moment, you can definitely check us out at ScouterStan.org. Okay, now that you got the information, let's head on back. Transparency and trust. This is something that's critical. Even in the Scout law, trustworthiness is the first one. So the fundraising needs to say how much it costs to do the fundraising, how much the monies were actually received, and how much actually went into the account. This is something that the treasurer's team of your unit actually should report on a regular basis. It might even be to the point where if it's a large enough sum, that might be something you want to make sure that your committee understands what's going on, knows what's there. Are you below your goal, or are you above your goal? Are you having a surplus? Are you having a deficit? What is happening with the money? It's very important that is a consistently done thing for every single committee should be involved in that. They should hear the treasurer's report. It's important that that's kept up for your unit. Your chartered organization may need to be notified and know about those things. They're at the meeting, so they would hear the report. So you want clarity. You want, if anybody wants to look at the books, they're invited to look at the books. And that is the important thing, that it has to be with every unit. Grants, matching, gifts that are given to the unit. It is important that you talk with, especially if it's a large sum, if it's a way of, say for instance, the troop had a tragedy of losing a trailer full of equipment. I know that has actually happened. It was stolen. And a celebrity came along and wrote a big check. Well, it's important that money, it's clear where that money went into the bank, and it's clear what was purchased to replace the equipment, how the trailer was replaced, and how this happened. And it is so critical that all of that stuff is done in the open, not behind the scenes, so that there's nobody saying any bad things about that funding coming in. So you need to be very clear about that. Now, in addition to that, if there's money left over, if there's monies that are not earmarked for that very purchase of a replacement equipment that was stolen, then that needs to be determined where that goes. There should not be an enormous amount of money left available within the unit's accounting. So you need to have that kept to a minimum. You need to make sure that the projects that you're doing all this fundraising for all year round have their own little columns, okay, in the accounting, so that they could actually say, well, the percentage of this is going to that, to help out with Scout Reach, and there's a percentage going towards helping with Recharter. There's a percentage going to this and that. If it's all clear, black and white, no problems, you'll have no problems. So it needs to be clear. That's true for the adults. The scouts, as long as it's helping the unit, they're fine. But the adults want to look at that. The adults want to make sure that nobody's messing with that money and it's clear. It's important that that be open and understood. Sustaining your momentum. When you're raising funds, it's important to keep going, okay? And that's true for every unit to understand. Fundraising needs to be a natural evolution. If you're going to get new people involved, you need to have that funding so that you can help them move along. There always will be people that are retiring out of your unit or moving on or going to another state or moving away. There's a lot of that can go on. So it's critical that you have a plan in order. So that is a very important thing to have that there, so that when those things happen, when they move on or they have new people coming in, that it's sustainable, that you can keep that momentum going. Now in scouting, we're constantly recruiting, and that's one of those things that we have to continue to do. We need to have those opportunities for youth that really get involved in something that's awesome, life-changing, okay? And that's scouting. So always keep that in mind. Now when you have a steady stream of scouts coming in and you have a steady stream of income coming in, those two things come together. And it makes a better unit. You have better equipment, better activities, better adventures that are out there, better opportunities for your scouts to succeed. Doing fundraising year-round is absolutely essential. I know of units that have actually gone through that process, and they'll get enough funds where they will give an award, okay? They will donate money to the council and actually get one of those square knots and put it on one of their leaders, okay? Because they donated through the unit towards that goal. So that's a huge thing. There are different things that you need to consider when you're looking at fundraising. And one of the big things is saying thank you. And that's one of the big things. You need to have an annual party, okay? I would recommend during during a holiday season, whatever holidays are observed within the unit, I would say that you pick the opposite, okay? But annually, there needs to be something like that. February is a wonderful time of year. It's very scouting, a lot of U.S. scouting. A lot of the big dates in scouting happen in February. That might be a month to avoid, but try to pick one that's in between so that you can get the maximum participation, okay? This is not a fundraiser, okay? But it's a thank you. And you want to thank everyone that was involved in raising money for your unit. So that is huge. You need to have your thank yous done on a regular basis. Do everything in a regular system, in a regular program, let a regular plan, and constantly have people coming into your treasurer team so that stays constant. And it's very important. You, my friend, are very important. You're part of all of this, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing your comments. Maybe you have a fundraiser I didn't even mention. So these are things that I put together, and I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing in scouting. Fundraising is one of those things that a lot of people think about, but they really don't do anything about. It's important that we do that every single month and keep it going. It's just like recruiting. You got to constantly have that there. Remember your planning and your programming and all the stuff, all the different facets of it. Make sure that you have a good treasurer's team. That means more than one person in your committee, so that you have a good treasurer that's giving out the information. If there's an expense like gas or something for an event, that's something that can be covered. So these are things that need to be done, no matter the size of the unit, no matter what kind of unit, whether it be a Cub Scout pack, a troop, a crew, ship, it does not matter. You have to have good finances, and it should be an ongoing thing all the time. Always keep that in mind. The channel is the same way, so definitely keep up that really good hard work. If you have an idea about any of the things I've talked about today, please let me know in the comments. I do read them. May not reply right away, but I do see them. Until next time, I'll see you on the trail.